Imagine having everything you've ever wanted, the fame, the wealth, and the luxuries that most people can only dream of. Yet deep inside, there's this feeling, a restlessness you just can't shake. You feel trapped, as though something essential is missing. Could the answer really be as simple as silence? Today, we're beginning a journey, one that reaches back into ancient wisdom and unlocks a teaching that might just change how you see yourself and the world around you. It's a lesson that Buddha shared centuries ago, one that reminds us of a secret power lying within each of us, a power we rarely tap into because we're always in motion, always talking, always thinking. This story tells of a great king, a man who seemed to have it all, yet was overwhelmed by frustration, by a relentless dissatisfaction he couldn't escape. He journeyed far, seeking a renowned Buddhist monk in search of an answer. What happened next wasn't some magical revelation. It was an invitation to be silent, to let his mind settle, and to experience the profound transformation that only silence can bring. So join us now as we step into the first chapter of the Buddhist secret. Together, let's uncover the hidden power of silence and discover how this ancient wisdom holds the key to a peaceful heart and a clear mind. Our words are powerful. They're so much more than just sounds we make. Words have a weight, a strength, and a life of their own. We throw them out into the world, sometimes without thinking, but each one of them carries a ripple effect. Buddha taught that our words are like the sharpest knife. They can slice through someone's heart and leave a mark that may never fully heal. But words can also be like a balm, a gentle, healing touch that brings comfort and peace. Think about it. How often do we speak without really considering the effect of what we're saying? A single careless comment can damage a friendship, destroy someone's confidence, or spread hurt that reaches far beyond what we intended. At the same time, a kind word, even something as simple as "I'm here for you," can change someone's day, their week, or even their life. The power we hold in our words is immense, yet so many of us use them carelessly, unaware of the lasting impact they create. In this chapter of the Buddhist secret, we explore how mindful speaking can reshape our lives and the lives of those around us. Imagine for a moment if every word you said held a specific weight, if you could actually see the effect it would have before you spoke it. Would it make you pause? Would it make you choose different words? Maybe fewer words? Buddha believed that the words we choose reflect the state of our mind and heart. If we're constantly agitated, angry, or distracted, our speech will show it. But if we're calm, thoughtful, and centered, our words will carry that same peace. Science backs this up too. Studies show that speaking kindly and mindfully not only benefits the people we're talking to, but also has a powerful effect on our own minds and bodies. Kind, positive words lower our stress levels, boost our immune systems, and even improve our heart health. On the other hand, harsh or angry words can actually harm us, raising stress hormones and leading to negative mental and physical effects over time. So, when we choose to speak with kindness and intention, we're not just helping others, we're helping ourselves, nurturing our own well-being. Silence, too, plays a role in this. By choosing when to speak and when to stay silent, we allow our minds the chance to slow down, to observe our thoughts and intentions before they spill out into words. Silence gives us that crucial pause, a moment to reflect, to decide what really needs to be said and what's better left unspoken. In Buddhism, this is often referred to as right speech, one of the Noble Eightfold Path's guiding principles. It reminds us that speaking mindfully is a practice, a skill that can transform not only our relationships, but also our own inner peace. Imagine a world where more people chose their words carefully, where silence was as valued as speech, where words were used to build, to encourage, and to heal. This is the power of mindful speaking and the strength of silence. It's not about never speaking. It's about speaking with purpose, with thought, and with love. In this journey through the Buddhist secret, let's remember, the words we choose don't just shape our conversations, they shape our lives. Imagine being a king, A man who holds the power to change lives with a single word. Someone surrounded by wealth, admiration, and the finest luxuries anyone could imagine. Yet, despite all of this, feeling an unshakable emptiness inside. Imagine waking up each day to grand halls, elegant feasts, and endless comforts, but still feeling as if something is deeply missing. That was the life of one king who, despite everything he owned and all the admiration he received, found himself plagued by a relentless restlessness, a quiet sorrow that no amount of wealth or status could soothe. Driven by a longing for something real, something that could bring him true peace, this king left behind his palace and his power. He set out on a journey, traveling deep into a forest where few dared to venture. He had heard of a renowned Buddhist monk who lived a life of complete simplicity, far from the noise and demands of the world. The monk was known for his wisdom, for a serenity that seemed unshakable, and for a peace that seemed to radiate from within him. The king was drawn to this monk, hoping he might hold the key to quieting his own troubled mind. When the king arrived, he found not a grand temple, but a simple monastery surrounded by trees, birds, and the soft rustling sounds of nature. He looked around, expecting to feel disappointed by the modest surroundings, but instead, he felt a strange calm wash over him. Here, in this humble place, there was a stillness he had never experienced in his luxurious palace. And as he stood there, face to face with the monk, the king could feel that he was in the presence of something profound, something that couldn't be bought or commanded. The monk welcomed him with a smile, calm and gentle, and asked him why he had come. The king, almost embarrassed, began to explain how, despite having everything, he still felt lost and empty. He confessed that he had all the wealth a person could desire, but not a moment of real peace. And then, almost pleadingly, he asked the monk, "How can I find peace? How can I quiet this restlessness inside?" The monk listened intently, his expression soft and understanding. He didn't react with surprise or judgment. Instead, he simply nodded and offered the king a simple response. He said, "You have traveled a long way, and the answer you're seeking isn't out there in the world, but within you. If you're willing to let go of all distractions and simply be here in silence, you may find what you're looking for." This answer startled the king. He had expected some ritual, some complex path to peace that involved knowledge or practice beyond his reach. But here was the monk, telling him that peace wasn't hidden in some secret text or mysterious practice. It was in silence, in letting go of everything he thought he needed and simply allowing himself to be. So, the king accepted the monk's invitation and committed to living in the monastery, away from the constant activity, away from the people who served his every whim. The days were quiet, simple, and profoundly challenging. For a man who was used to the attention and noise of court life, this silence was almost unbearable at first. His mind filled with questions, doubts, and distractions. But the monk simply encouraged him to stay present, to listen to the silence, and to let his thoughts settle. And over time, something extraordinary began to happen. The king, who had come seeking answers, began to realize that the answers didn't come from outside, but from a stillness within him. He discovered a profound sense of peace, a peace that could never be found in wealth or power, but only in embracing the simplicity and silence he had once avoided. What he learned was a powerful truth, that the search for peace isn't a journey of acquiring more, but of letting go. And sometimes, the most powerful discovery we can make is that all we truly need to be content is already within us, waiting to be heard in the quiet moments when we dare to sit in silence. In this journey, the king discovered something more precious than any treasure, a peace that was his alone, a strength that didn't rely on anyone or anything else. It was a journey back to himself, to a wisdom he had been carrying all along. And so, this king, who had come with everything and yet nothing, left that forest richer than ever, carrying with him the Buddhist secret of silence and simplicity. The king, a man who had lived his whole life surrounded by noise, by the sounds of the palace, the voices of advisors, and the endless praise and complaints from his people, now found himself in complete silence. It was a silence so deep it almost seemed unnatural to him. Here, in the heart of the forest, there was no one to command, no one to please, and no voices echoing through grand halls. Just him and the soft rustling of leaves, the occasional call of a distant bird, and the quiet rhythm of his own heartbeat. The first few days felt unbearable. This silence wasn't comforting. It was a kind of torture. Every worry, every regret, every fear he had ever pushed away now returned, louder than ever, in the quiet of the forest. Thoughts raced through his mind, clashing against one another, each one demanding his attention. He remembered decisions he had made, both good and bad. He thought of moments when he had hurt others with harsh words or impatience. He relived the stresses of his responsibilities, the burdens he had carried alone, even in his finest hours. It was as if he was trapped in a storm, but this storm wasn't around him, it was within him. For a man used to controlling everything around him, his thoughts now felt wild, uncontrollable. He wanted to get up, to shout, to do anything to break the silence that forced him to confront these hidden parts of himself. But the monk's words echoed in his mind. Stay. Listen to the silence. Let your thoughts settle. So, he stayed, fighting every instinct to escape, to fill the quiet with sound, with anything that could distract him from himself. Then, after days of inner struggle, something began to change. It was subtle at first, almost imperceptible. The noise in his mind started to fade, like a storm that had finally exhausted itself. The thoughts that had once been so loud became quieter, softer, like distant echoes. For the first time, he felt a strange kind of calm, a gentleness he hadn't known he was capable of feeling. The forest, which had seemed so lonely and quiet, now seemed alive, vibrant, with a peaceful energy he hadn't noticed before. He began to notice the simple beauty around him, the way the sunlight filtered through the trees, casting soft patterns on the ground, the delicate sway of leaves in the wind, the sound of a small stream flowing nearby. These were things he had seen 1,000 times, yet never truly noticed. In the palace, his mind had always been too busy, too distracted to really look, to truly appreciate the simple gifts that nature offered. In this stillness, he felt a sense of awe. The silence he had once dreaded now felt comforting, like a gentle embrace. It was as if he was seeing the world for the first time, with new eyes, without the constant chatter of his own mind clouding his vision. He began to understand why the monk had brought him here, why he had been asked to simply sit in silence and listen. It was a lesson in presence, in learning to be here, in this moment, without the need to control, to plan, or to judge. The beauty of stillness revealed itself to him, not in grand gestures or dramatic realizations, but in the quiet, simple moments that filled his days. He learned that peace wasn't something he could grasp or command. It was something he had to allow, to let flow into him, like the breeze moving gently through the trees. And as the king sat there, feeling this deep, quiet joy, he realized he didn't need the wealth, the power, or even the praise of his people to feel fulfilled. All he needed was this sense of stillness, this connection to the world around him and to himself, a peace that came from simply being, from allowing himself to exist without any demands or expectations. In those moments, he discovered a truth that no throne, no wealth could ever teach him, that sometimes the greatest power lies in surrendering, in letting go, and in finding the beauty within the silence. In the silence of the forest, something extraordinary began to happen to the king. His senses seemed sharper, more aware, as if a veil had lifted from his eyes. He began to see details he'd never noticed before, even though they'd always been there. The intricate patterns on the leaves, each one unique, each line carefully etched by nature's hand. He could see the way the sunlight gently kissed the tops of the trees, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. It was a quiet dance between light and shadow, a rhythm he had never taken the time to observe. And the sounds, Sounds he had once thought were mere background noise came alive in a symphony. The soft rustling of leaves as the wind brushed through them, the melody of birds calling to one another, the distant murmur of a stream winding its way through the trees. It was as if the forest itself had a voice he could only hear now that he had stilled his own thoughts. In the quiet, he could feel the heartbeat of nature, steady, calm, and timeless. The king realized something profound in those moments. He'd spent his whole life surrounded by noise, not just the noise of people and responsibilities, but the noise of his own mind, constantly thinking, planning, and worrying. That noise had kept him from truly seeing, truly hearing, truly feeling the world around him. Now, in this silence, he felt as if he was discovering a new world, one filled with beauty and wonder he had overlooked. What if we too are missing out on life's subtle wonders because we're so surrounded by noise? How often do we rush through our days, our minds filled with a constant stream of thoughts, to-do lists, and distractions? When was the last time we simply paused, listened, and let the world reveal itself to us in its quiet simplicity? The king's experience was a reminder that silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's an invitation to experience life from a new perspective. In silence, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. The simple act of watching leaves dance in the wind, listening to the call of a bird, or feeling the warmth of sunlight on your skin becomes a source of joy, a reminder of the world's beauty. He began to feel a deep connection to this quiet, living world around him, a connection he'd never felt in the palace, surrounded by the constant demands of his role and the weight of his responsibilities. In the forest, there was nothing to prove, no one to impress. He could simply exist as he was, without judgment or expectation. And in that simplicity, he found a freedom and a joy he had never known. Silence gave him the space to reconnect with himself and with the world. He began to understand that the peace he had been searching for wasn't something he could attain through power or possessions. It was something he could only feel by being present, by letting go of all the noise and allowing himself to see, hear, and feel with a clear heart and mind. So, what if silence could do the same for us? What if, by choosing moments of quiet, we could unlock a fresh perspective on life? Could we too find joy in the small details, in the simple beauty that surrounds us every day? Perhaps, like the king, we would begin to see the world anew, not through the lens of what we want or need, but through the quiet appreciation of what simply is. In a world full of distractions, maybe silence is the most powerful tool we have to truly see, to truly hear, and to truly connect with life. This is the essence of the Buddhist secret, the wisdom that lies in stillness, the clarity that emerges in silence. By embracing moments of quiet, we can discover a deeper connection to the world around us, and perhaps a deeper connection to ourselves. On the 12th day, something remarkable occurred for the king. After days of simply sitting, observing, and embracing the stillness of the forest, he decided to close his eyes and allow his mind to settle even deeper. In that moment, he wasn't a king or a man of power. He was simply a being, present and open. As he sank into the quiet, he felt himself drifting into a state he'd never experienced before. His thoughts slowed, like ripples fading on a calm pond. It was as if the endless worries, fears, and desires that had filled his mind for years had finally begun to dissolve. For the first time, he understood the essence of meditation. It wasn't about trying to control his thoughts or escape from them. It was about letting go, allowing his mind to rest and his true self to emerge from beneath the noise. In this state, he experienced a clarity unlike anything he'd felt before, a sharpness, a focus, as if he could finally see himself and the world without the fog of distraction. He wasn't thinking about the past or the future. He was simply here, fully in the present, and it was liberating. What the king experienced is what modern science now tells us about meditation's effect on the brain. When we meditate, the brain shifts from a constant state of alertness and stress to one of calm awareness. Our minds are given the space to rest and reorganize, allowing us to let go of old patterns of thinking, of constant planning, and of endless worries. Studies have shown that regular meditation can reduce stress, improve focus, and even change the way our brain processes emotions. It's as if meditation rewires us, helping us find a balance between the mind's natural busyness and a deeper, quieter awareness. For the king, this experience wasn't just a moment of peace, it was a revelation. He began to understand why the monk had encouraged him to sit in silence for so many days. It wasn't just an escape from the world, it was a journey inward, a chance to reconnect with his own mind and spirit. In this place of stillness, he felt a profound sense of calm that wasn't dependent on anything outside himself. It wasn't based on wealth, power, or admiration. It was simply there, within him, waiting to be discovered. Silence, he realized, is essential in spiritual practices because it creates the space needed for self-discovery. It's in the quiet moments, when we stop filling our minds with endless thoughts and distractions, that we can truly listen to what lies within us. Meditation is the path that allows us to enter this inner world, to see past our own desires, fears, and doubts, and to connect with a deeper truth. It's a practice that brings us back to our true nature, a reminder of the peace that exists within us, beyond all the noise and chaos. As the king continued to meditate, he felt a growing sense of inner strength. This clarity wasn't just a fleeting moment, it was a new way of being, one that he could carry with him back into his daily life. He understood that, while he could return to the responsibilities and challenges of his role, he didn't have to lose this peace. It was something he could cultivate within himself, a refuge he could return to whenever he needed. Meditation, he realized, wasn't an escape from life. It was a way to face life with a calm, clear mind. It gave him a sense of resilience, a strength that didn't come from his title or his riches, but from within. And with that realization, the king felt a joy and a contentment that no throne, no wealth could ever provide. This experience taught him that the answers he'd been searching for weren't in the outside world. They were within him all along, waiting for him to be still enough to listen. And in that stillness, he found a profound truth. That true clarity, true wisdom, comes not from seeking more, but from letting go, from embracing the simplicity and beauty of being present. In our own lives, meditation offers us a path to that same inner clarity. It's a chance to step away from the endless noise, to find a quiet moment and reconnect with ourselves. And in that space, we too might discover that all we truly need, the strength, the peace, the wisdom, has been within us all along, just waiting to be uncovered. This is the Buddhist secret, the power of silence, the depth of meditation, and the profound peace that lies within us if we only take the time to listen. After 2 weeks in the quiet sanctuary of the forest, the king felt like a new person. His spirit was lighter, his mind clearer. He returned to the monk, no longer the restless, burdened man who had arrived seeking answers. He felt as though he had shed a heavy weight he didn't even know he was carrying. As he looked at the monk, he felt an overwhelming gratitude for the gift of silence and stillness he had been given. With a calmness he hadn't known before, the king spoke of his experience. He shared how, in the silence, he'd come to understand the true source of his unhappiness. It wasn't his circumstances, his responsibilities, or even the demands of being a king. Instead, it was within him. The constant need to talk, to be heard, to prove himself, and, most of all, the habit of letting negative thoughts dominate his mind. He realized that he had been a prisoner of his own thoughts, a captive to endless mental chatter that never allowed him to experience peace. He told the monk, "I have always used words to command, to seek approval, to distract myself from the loneliness I felt. But I see now that this endless talking only kept me from the peace I so desperately wanted. My mind was always busy with what I thought others expected from me, with judgments, with doubts. But in silence, I began to understand that these thoughts weren't my truth. They were only noise, blocking me from the wisdom within. The monk listened patiently, nodding as the king spoke. Then, with his usual gentle tone, he replied, "Yes, my friend, this is a lesson many find difficult to learn. We are taught to value words, to use them to communicate, to influence, to express ourselves. But few are taught the value of silence, the silence that reveals our inner wisdom, that calms our restless minds, that allows us to truly see ourselves and the world around us." The king felt a deep resonance with the monk's words. He thought of how often he had spoken without purpose, how his mind had been filled with judgments and negativity, often without him realizing it. In the quiet of the forest, he had found a rare clarity, a stillness that allowed him to see beyond his habitual patterns. He realized that wisdom wasn't something that came from talking, debating, or impressing others. True wisdom, he now understood, was born in silence, in the space between words, where the mind could rest and reflect. The monk continued, "Many people believe that to be wise, one must have all the answers and be ready to share them at every opportunity. But true wisdom is often silent. It knows when to speak and when to remain still. The more we talk, the more we distance ourselves from that inner knowing. But in silence, we come home to ourselves. We see beyond our fears, our desires, our constant need for approval, and we find a deeper truth." The king nodded, understanding now why the monk had invited him into the silence rather than giving him immediate answers. This lesson was one he could only have learned through experience, through the quiet that had initially felt so uncomfortable. It was the silence that had transformed him, that had allowed him to see his own heart and mind with a new clarity. He realized that this wisdom wasn't just for monks or people who chose a life of solitude. It was for anyone who sought true peace and understanding. Silence wasn't about isolation or avoiding the world. It was about creating a space within oneself where clarity and compassion could grow. It was a practice that anyone, even a king, could embrace in their daily life. With gratitude, the king thanked the monk, not just for the lessons in words, but for the lesson of silence itself. He understood now that silence was a rare and precious gift, one that allowed him to hear the quiet wisdom within. As he prepared to leave the forest, he made a vow to himself, to carry this silence within him, to choose his words with intention, and to remember that true wisdom often lies not in what we say, but in what we allow ourselves to hear. And so, he returned to his kingdom, transformed. He no longer felt the need to fill the silence with empty words, or to allow his mind to be consumed by negativity. He found peace in the quiet moments, strength in stillness, and a newfound respect for the power of listening. The monk's lesson, that silence fosters true wisdom, was a truth he carried with him for the rest of his life, a truth that centuries later still holds the power to guide us back to ourselves. As we come to the end of this journey, remember this simple yet profound truth. True peace cannot be found in external things or even in the people around us. It's not something that wealth can buy or that status can grant. Peace isn't hidden in possessions, in accomplishments, or even in the approval of others. Instead, it starts within us, within the quiet spaces of our own hearts and minds. And in a world that constantly demands more from us, that pulls us in countless directions, this inner peace becomes our most valuable treasure. Practicing silence is a way to access that peace. Even just a few minutes a day can make a powerful difference. Imagine starting each morning with a moment of stillness, giving yourself the chance to reset, to connect with the present, and to let go of whatever thoughts or worries might have been lingering. In those minutes, you allow your mind and spirit to settle, to find a calm that remains with you throughout the day. When we practice silence regularly, we begin to notice changes, not just in our mood, but in the way we approach life itself. The endless rush feels less urgent. The noise fades into the background. We start to see things with more clarity and to listen with more openness. Our relationships improve, not because we're saying more, but because we're listening better, allowing others to be heard without feeling the need to fill every moment with words. This practice of silence, though it may seem simple, is a profound act of self-care. It gives us strength, resilience, and a deeper understanding of ourselves. It's a way of embracing wisdom without needing to be wise, of finding tranquility without needing to change anything around us. Through silence, we gain the power to face the challenges of life with calm, to respond with intention, and to move through our days with a sense of inner stability that can't be shaken. And as you begin to embrace this practice, know that you are not alone. There are many who walk this path, who seek the same wisdom and peace. By joining our community, you're stepping into a circle of like-minded souls, people who are also exploring the depths of their own minds, seeking a life of balance, compassion, and strength. Together, we embark on this Zen journey, each of us learning, growing, and finding our way back to the quiet center within. So, take a moment to breathe, to pause, to let this wisdom settle into your heart. Let it remind you that, no matter where you are, no matter what is happening around you, there is always a place of peace within you, waiting to be discovered. Embrace that peace, nurture it, and let it guide you in everything you do. This is the Buddhist secret, the timeless wisdom that teaches us that peace begins within, and from that place, it flows out into the world, touching everyone and everything we encounter. Thank you for joining us on this journey. May each of us find that inner silence, that strength, and that clarity, and may we carry it with us, creating a world